the Tucson Sugar Skulls.
In 2019, the Tucson Sugar Skulls broke onto the indoor football league scene in historic fashion, making the playoffs as an expansion team. During a roller coaster ride of the season, the Skulls established themselves quickly with a high-powered offense that featured the league's best running back and a hard-hitting defense. The first pro football team in Tucson captured the imagination of the city and laid the groundwork for a first-class winner for years to come.
It's all action. There's hardly.
There's no downtime.
Tomorrow, city leaders will introduce the owners of a new indoor football team coming to Tucson.
To put together a winner in the Indoor Football League, the brand new Sugar Skulls looked to the previous league champion, the Iowa Barnstormers, for help. Tucson signed 2 first-team All-IFL Barnstormers in linebacker Zach Allen and lineman Keith Jones Jr. 2 more former All-League defenders were signed in defensive back D. Magid and native Tucsonan linebacker Robert Metz. Staying at home, Tucson brought in a local playmaker, defensive back Cam Gaddis, and then filled out the secondary with former LSU Tiger Micah Eugene Jr. On the offensive side of the ball, the Sugar Skulls signed former North Carolina State star Shadrack Thornton at running back and a little-known bruiser from Florida in Bethune-Cookman's Mike Jones. And then late in camp, Tucson signed 2 quarterbacks with IFL experience, scrambler Matt Barrett and the reigning league leader in passing Jake Medlock. With the roster set and the uniforms revealed, the team was finally ready to put it all on the field. For the first game in franchise history, the Sugar Skulls took to the road to face the San Diego Strike Force, who would be playing in their second game in franchise history. Tucson came out firing, using their very first half to establish how they would play as a team the entire season. With Mike Jones making the surprise start and rushing for 2 first-half touchdowns, and the defense imposing their will and forcing turnovers behind Keith Jones Jr. and defensive back D. Magid, who would earn IFL Defensive Player of the Week honors. The brand new team from Tucson was a force to be reckoned with. Shaq Currington was on the receiving end of 3 touchdowns, 1 from Matt Barron and 2 from Jake Medlock, as Tucson came away a 65-44 winner in game number 1. Feeling confident after getting the franchise off on the right foot in San Diego, Tucson returned home a week later for their home opener. The festivities and fan activities foreshadowed the on-field fireworks that were to take place inside the arena on a beautiful new gray playing surface.
The fans were excited. The stands were packed. We giving the people something new.
The inaugural home game.
The city was introduced to indoor football with a large dose, as the Sugar Skulls, dressed in all black, fell behind 1-0 on a Rouge point, but then never trailed again, as Matt Barron played the whole game and threw 8 touchdowns.
We always know going into the game exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and so we executed.
Fan favorites were established in Cam Gaddis and an offensive enforcer from the Tohono O'odham Nation, Antonio Rosales, both Tucson natives. The opener was a success on the field and for Tucson. Starved for pro sports, the city embraced the Sugar Skulls, packing over 5,000 excited fans into Tucson Arena, which from then on would be known as the Boneyard.
62-42, not a bad start. Not a bad start at all.
If the Sugar Skulls really were instant contenders in the Indoor Football League, they would find out the following week as the inaugural showdown with the Arizona Rattlers, the most storied franchise in the history of indoor football, awaited them.
Man, we coming to play, man. Every down, every play, we coming to play. They should be ready.
The Sugar Skulls were a perfect 2-0 to start their opening season, but a team that would come to define perfection in the IFL in 2019 was waiting for them in Week 4, as they traveled to Phoenix to face their mighty in-state rivals, the Arizona Rattlers.
2 of the 4 remaining undefeated teams in the IFL.
Behind Mike Jones and Matt Barrett, starting his 3rd straight game at quarterback to open the season, the Sugar Skulls took the early lead. But soon the Rattlers' championship resolve exposed Tucson as an expansion team. Zach Allen, the league's leading tackler, remained a bright spot and a force with 11 tackles.
work harder.
Tucson was humble, but they would have 3 more chances to prove they could play with the Arizona Rattlers. The Sugar Skulls knew they needed to put special attention on improving if they were going to compete with the league's best, and they took advantage of their bye week to sharpen all phases, but especially special teams. And it paid off in a big way the following week during Expansion Bowl 2 versus San Diego at the Boneyard.
So it's a very electric atmosphere.
You don't lose at home.
Kicker Diego Marquez earned IFL Special Teams Player of the Week as he connected on a 45-yard field goal early and later scored on a 4-yard touchdown. Cam Gaddis recovered a blocked field goal to go with a late interception, and Mike Jones added 100 yards of total offense and 3 scores.
This bye week, we worked our butt off and watched extra film.
Jake Medlock accounted for 4 touchdowns in his first start of the season as the Sugar Skulls improved to 3-1.
We got to win, but like Coach said, we got a lot of work to do.
March was over, and April would be a month that would test the true character of the first-year Sugar Skulls. Tucson sought to put the league on notice with a chance to go 4-1, heading to Nebraska for a road trip matchup with the Danger.
And Jones scoots into the end zone for 6, and that was way too easy. Snap will come. Quick toss to Jones toward the end zone, and...
Despite 3 touchdowns from Mike Jones, the Sugar Skulls fell behind 17 points in the second half. Tucson stormed back to within 6 with under a minute to play as Jake Medlock took over under center and led the comeback. Late in the game, Zach Allen's sack on 3rd down forced a Nebraska field goal which sailed wide left. With a chance to win it, Medlock nearly hit Shaq Carrington for the game winner, and the ensuing pass was tipped and intercepted as Tucson fell just short. A chance for redemption met the Sugar Skulls in Week 8 as the Rattlers visited the Boneyard for the first time. Jake Medlock got his second start at quarterback and wouldn't relinquish the job going forward. Tucson showed they were a different team than in their previous matchup, taking a 14-7 lead on a 41-yard touchdown pass from Medlock to Rico Brown. On this day, the Sugar Skulls weren't allowing the Rattlers to push them around, as they controlled the tempo throughout the first half, playing to a tie at halftime. In the second half, however, the Rattlers displayed how elite teams maintain their level of play through 4 quarters.
In the trenches, it's a different type of game. I wanted to play the Rattlers not because they were the Rattlers, but because they had the best players.
The Sugar Skulls' mistakes eventually caught up with them in a 55-41 loss.
We just hurt ourselves. That's really what happened.
You cannot play with us at all. You shoot yourself in the foot all the time. Definitely got to stop making all the mistakes.
We are not going to be able to beat a team like that shooting ourselves in the foot.
Trying to get back on the right track, the Sugar Skulls traveled to Illinois to take on Quad City. Mike Jones had over 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns, while newcomer Malik Belfort, found by the team in an open tryout, scored a pair of touchdowns as well. Defensive back D. Magid took over kick return duties in the second half due to an injury, and returned to kickoff 53 yards for a touchdown and was named IFL Special Teams Player of the Week. But otherwise, the Steamwheelers caused the wheels to come off of the Tucson defense, as Quad City scored on every offensive possession, and Steamwheelers quarterback E.J. Hilliard threw for 247 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Sugar Skulls lost their 3rd straight to sink to their lowest point on the season. Week 10 brought a matchup with a familiar foe, head coach Dixie Wooten and the defending champion Iowa Barnstormers. 3 Tucson coaches and 5 players were ex-Barnstormers. One of those players, Keith Jones Jr., was returning to the Sugar Skulls after missing 2 weeks due to an Arena Football League camp invite.
But to me, it's more than just another game. We started the winning culture up there.
We're trying to get back on the winning record, and I think this would be the perfect time to start.
I would definitely love to beat them. The most special thing about it is that they're the defending champ.
In an all-out slugfest, the Tucson defense struggled to contain the champs, giving up 210 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns to Iowa's Ryan Ballantyne and Jazarick Peterson.
We had chances to end the game early.
Mike Jones had a huge day with 109 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, including a 28-yard score in the 4th quarter where he escaped tacklers along the wall.
There they thought he had him out of bounds, but they didn't. He scooted right between the players.
If you watch the game, there was not a lack of talent in comparison.
Tucson mistakes reared their ugly head at the worst time moments later, before Shaq Carrington delivered his 3rd touchdown of the day, and perhaps the greatest moment in franchise history up to that point, with a 28-yard score to give Tucson a 58-54 lead.